Okay, let's begin the interview. Hello, guys of United Rock Nations. VENOM INC is in the place now. Thank you very much. How are you?
Yeah, very well. And hi to everybody. Good evening. And it's good to be here. And thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So, of course, we are here to talk about the new album, There's Only Black. So, when I listen the new album, it seems that you go further with more thrash metal style and more heavier speed guitar riffs than the previous album. Are you agree with that?
Yeah, I think I do. You know, all kind of accidental. You know, one of the questions that people would say is, how do you compare it to Arve? And I kind of don't compare it to Arve because, you know, one of the things I always liked about, you know, I think the progression of bands, if you take the first Iron Maiden album to Number of the Beast to
yes, absolutely,
the last album, you know, I mean, it's the same band, the same identity, but, you know, they have this richness which evolves from playing together, writing together, touring together. You know, it happened to Metallica, and for good or for bad at certain points, but they just went on an adventure and discovered themselves. You know, everybody wants Master of Puppets again, and everybody wants black metal again, and everybody. But I think what people tend to forget is, you know, those moments, those classic albums like Ace of Spades for me, you know, that year was incredible. And, you know, 40 years later, I'd go and see Motorhead and I'd want him to play Ace of Spades. And I'm sure Lemmy was like, for fuck's sake. And I even remember him doing an interview once and saying, you know, we wrote better songs than Ace of Spades. And that's probably true, but there's something about Ace of Spades for me and for other people that connected to it that it transcends the writing and that process. It puts you back to that moment you first heard it, and you could be 16, you could be 12, you could be 20. It doesn't matter. So it evokes that kind of feeling and that kind of emotion, and that's what we love about music. You know, you'll be in a store buying jeans or something and hear an old song from, I don't know, the 70s or 80s, and you know, even though that's probably not your go-to music, immediately it reminds you of, I don't know, a beach, a summer holiday with your family, a particular meal, a particular adventure. And because music does that, I think, you know, that's what I want to make the people who listen to this album. Some people, it will be their first time hearing it. So there'll be a song that will stay with them for 30, 40 years. And when they hear it later down the road, when, you know, it's in a bargain bin somewhere or nobody's listening to heavy metal anymore, they'll hear it and it'll just evoke those emotions the first time they had it. That's what I want, that kind of excitement. And one thing I always loved about Venom was, if you take Welcome to Hell, it didn't sound like black metal. Black metal didn't sound like what was saying.
Absolutely.
The singles didn't sound like anything. You know, Warhead, Manitou, Bloodlust, In League with Satan, Die, nothing. So every moment was its own moment, was just a happening, and they didn't try and make it fit anything else. The same people making the same noise, but there was something special about each single one. And that's kind of how we wanted this to be. You know, I said to Mantis early on, we just write. He wrote 12 songs in total. I wrote 12. Then we kind of put 6 and 6 and 6 and 6. So one extra 6, you know, and 6, 3, 6. So we do an extra one, and we just mixed them all up. Talked to the label. They said this would be good for the first part 1 of the album. So it was like, okay. And we said, you pick the track list. So as far as we were involved with all of the writing and the creativity, and after that we just said, well, we're not making any decisions because it is what it is. It should just be that, an event and a happening and a moment for everybody. Mm-hmm. So we didn't look backwards. We usually, myself and Jeff, we push each other to be better than we were. So if he does an amazing piece and comes up with a great riff or a blinding solo, the next time I push him to go just that bit further, just push the envelope and see where you can get to. And he does the same thing with me. So we're always trying to compete with ourselves, nobody else, only ourselves, just to get the best out of ourselves. And so for those reasons, I think this album is a kind of a leap from there.
Absolutely.
there's still connective tissue. You know, I wrote Come to Me to be the bridge between the two albums. So that has the atmosphere and what we had on Artiste. But very much we've gone for a simpler version, a much more, we're actually there playing it version. So hopefully when you hear it, it feels like you're with us and we're in your room playing it to you, you know. Less distortion on the bass, less distorted guitars. I mean, Mantis guitarists make a mistake. They all think, how do you get that sound in? It's very simple. It has distortion, chorus, and a Marshall. That's it. It's not the sound, it's the player that makes it. So we paid back on that. And of course, with Mr. Kling, his remit was feel the music. Because again, if you try and control it, if you try and manipulate it to be something into a shape, you're going to fail. You are going to fail. You know, it has to just evolve itself. And it happens in the best way if you feel it. So if you feel what should happen, you just go with your instinct, then you get the best out of each one of us. And I'm really proud that I think we got the best for these songs. You know, I hope everybody likes them, of course, but even if you don't, it's the best version of us we could be at that point. Absolutely. And so, yeah.
It's a great album. You talk about the guitars, the riffs, the Marshall, but also your singing sounds more black metal than the previous album. How do you explain that choice to change the way you sing on this album?
Well, you know, there's been, you know, because of Venom and because of, you know, obviously the person who I took over from and who is still in existence and still does his thing very well, I may add, you know, and still does remarkable work and still tours. You know, and then I put my microphone up, so people are like, yeah, he's trying to be Kronos and he's trying to be there. And even at the time when I joined the band, people were like, you know, how does it feel stepping into someone's shoes? Well, you know, a footnote is I always wear my own socks and I always wear my own shoes. And so I've always been the same person. I haven't changed who I am, and I haven't changed my approach. And I think basically with age, my voice has matured. You know, I had singing lessons so I could control it. And so, you know, it's just the way it's evolved. You know, smoking and whiskey helps, you know. And even the mic stand, the reason I popped the mic stand up was we were on tour in America and Lemmy died. And he was my reason for doing this. And, you know, much like everybody else, nobody wanted to lose him. But I didn't want to lose, you know, the inspirational side. The reason I was there, because I felt it. And so I changed the mic position. I put on my my War Pig pendant, and I have I used to only drink tequila straight with ice. And then I said, I'll have a Jack and Coke. And even my tech was like, you don't drink Jack and Coke. I went, I do now. So I have a shot with my sound man before I go on. So during performance, it's like he's with me in my heart all the time. And so I'm kind of evoking his spirit, not to try and be him, because nobody could be him, not to try and sound like him, but just to keep that alive, what he lived for, what he did all of his life. And I think it's much the same with the old songs, you know. You know, maybe you could go, yeah, it kind of sounds like Kronos, but it's like, well, you know, the original demos, you know, Angel Dust, Red Light Fever, they were Clive Archer, they weren't Kronos. And if you listen to them, most people will not know that it isn't Kronos because it sounds like him. So why and therefore did Kronos sound like Clive and adopt Clive's satanic, his whole approach to that? Because it became their identity, and because he knew it worked. And so he went with that. Now, I could do a different version of In League with Satan or Live Like an Angel, but that's not what the fans want to hear. They want to feel the reality of it.
Absolutely.
So my approach is just to dig myself in, feel it, and the music tells me how to sound. So on Artiste, it was a bit different, and on this, it felt more vital, more impassioned, more violent, and just that kind of came out. I didn't think, well, I'll do it like this or I'll do it like that. It just happened, you know.
It's natural, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, natural. It has to be.
Let's talk about the title of the album, There's Only Black. Does the title refer to the COVID period or the world situation?
Well, interesting. You know, a lot of people have said, obviously, it's connected to black metal albums. And every time they say that, I'm like, is it? And I was like, I never thought of that. And now I've kind of asked people, they go, well, yeah, of course. And I was like, why? Because I didn't think of that. Originally, the album, it was going to be part 1 and part 2. It was about the Dante's Inferno, about a person's journey from birth to death, all of the crap that happens to us on the way, and eventually, you know, like Rob Flynn put up the other day, there's a highway to hell, but there's only a stairway to heaven. So they're assuming there's going to be more traffic going that way than there is going that way. And, you know, so I think it was going to be that adventure. It was going to be called 9. I wrote the title track, was there. I was doing the artwork. And then Jeff sent me one of his songs through one afternoon and said, oh, have a listen. I've kind of put some lyrics on this. See what you think. I was like, okay, cool. And he said, yeah, it's about when he died, because he died for several minutes. And he said, you know, he's still trying to cope with that in a mental way. Physically he's okay, but mentally he's still, you know, how do you cope with something that enormous, knowing what happens, you're going to die and seeing it. And he said, yeah, so it's about my experience, because I didn't see a light and I didn't see angels and I didn't see my mom and dad. I just saw this void. It was just black. I mean, so I've just called it There's Only Black. And as soon as he said it, it was like, bing, that's it. It's kind of like the meaning of life. You know, we search for new frontiers. We want to find if there's life on Mars. What's at the end of the universe? What's in a black hole? What's after life? What is death? You know, all these questions that humanity, we ask of ourselves. And some things we can discover. Oh, what does that taste like? Here, have a taste. What does that smell like? Well, here, have a smell. What is it like on Everest? Go. You know, but some things like into a black hole, death, it's your experience. You can do it, but you can't come back and tell me you did it and say, wow, actually, you know, we thought there was no light. It's actually beaches and coconuts and it's wonderful. Or just fucking don't go there. You can't translate that. So our imagination makes up what the end result is, but we can't tell people. And so I guess that was the whole thing to me. It was like, yeah, if you turn the sun off, where's the light? There's only black. If you turn all the stars off, there's only black.
Absolutely.
If it's a dark night and you turn all the lights off in your house, if you go blind, there's only black. So light is the source, light is the energy, light is the knowledge. You know, Lucifer was the light bringer, was given to man on earth to give them knowledge, you know, to lead them, to show them the light. And we're always talking about that. So it's an energy source, which is us. And when that energy loses, your carcass dies. But what happens next? We don't know. So kind of that just became a bigger meaning. So, and for where we are now, because climate change, the wars, the pandemic, the economy, oil, we as the simple people, we don't know what's going on. Absolutely. So we kind of try and draw our own conclusions. Conspiracies and real facts get mixed up, so we don't know what the truth is, you know, and it all blends into this unknown. So I guess There's Only Black, is it a definitive statement or is it a question for you? If you look at the album cover, it's a black hole, or yes, is it an eyeball? It's an energy source. So I'm kind of saying, why don't you come in and discover what's inside? Then you can go and tell someone else. If you think it's bad, you can say it's bad, but you might find something that gives you something extra. And so that was the idea.
Fantastic. So let's talk about some songs of the album. I selected 2 songs that I want to talk about. I love a lot the song Don't Feed Me Your Lies. There's a black spirit at the beginning, and then a more heavier and thrash part. Tell us more about that song.
Well, again, that's a Jeff composition, and ironically, you know, the first two singles that the label chose was "How Many Can Die" and then "Don't Feed Me Your Lies." When they chose "How Many Can Die," you know, there was the war began in Ukraine, so everybody thought we'd made a song about that, but it wasn't. It just happened to be that timing. And the same, once "Don't Feed Me Your Lies" was released, we had in England, we had our leader who during a pandemic was, nobody could go, even our queen, bless her, who just passed,
Yes,
had to
absolutely.
sit by herself in a church while her husband was buried because nobody was allowed to be near her. At the same time, our politicians were all having parties.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it was like, whoa. So when we put out "Don't Feed Me Your Lies," it just seemed to fit, you know, what happened in America with the elections and Donald Trump and Joe Biden and Hillary's emails. It fed into the whole pandemic, you know, with China and who did it and where it was going, and then all of the politicians who were scrambling around for these vaccines and telling you couldn't do this while they did that. So it just sort of mixed. But the song itself is actually composed about somebody we know, and Jeff just got really irate and wrote the song about that particular individual, you know, telling falsehoods to get whatever sympathy or whatever it is, you know. And so it was quite pointed at somebody that we knew and how they conducted themselves, but it just seemed to slip into the world net of everything that was happening. So, you know, and within a week, it was like it streamed over 200,000 on YouTube. You know, that's not the streams of the single, but that was just the hits on YouTube. So
exactly.
Obviously we hit a nerve there that people could relate to. So that's good. That's good.
Absolutely. The second song I love a lot is "Burn, Liar, Burn," because it begins with 3 minutes instrumental introduction. The most important part of this song is instrumental. So tell us more about that song.
Well, again, it's an epica, isn't it? And you're picking all Mantas songs, so I'm not happy. No, I'm just kidding. Again, another Mantas composition. You know, Jeff has this way of composing, and you know, he will do like 12 bars when he could do 8, or he'll do 16 when he could do 12. So, you know, because he loses himself in the music, you know, and you know, as a vocalist or as a listener, you might go, I want to get into the singing and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But for me, I think when he explores himself, when he, you know, when he just loses himself in it, it becomes this cornucopia, this carpet, this beautiful painting of just everything at once. And I then get to just play it. I don't have to focus on trying to tell a story or trying to aim a chorus or a point. I can just play. And I think myself and Jeremy enjoy that song so much because of that. We can just be musicians and we can just explore and play and those rhythms and how he put it together. And so it's kind of in 2 parts because of that. You know, we have this long, beautiful thing that leads as instrumental where he just goes away. And I love that. I love that. I like to see him exploring that more. And then when it's time to come and do the business, boom, we're in. We do the business.
Exactly.
So, you know, and I kind of also like, you know, when we did Artiste, the obvious song to put out first was "Metal We Bleed" or
yes.
"Black and Roll," obviously, yes. Because, you know, but I chose "Dying Flight," and on the album it was like 6 minutes or just over 6 minutes long, but I edited it to 4 minutes to go out as a single because I knew people would obviously expect something a bit like "Metal We Bleed," and then I put that out, people were like, what? I mean, really? Oh my God. So it was kind of a way of just going, don't be predictable. You know, don't be predictable. Don't, you know, the whole thing is the adventure, is the wonderful thing. It looks like chocolate, but it tastes like strawberries. It looks like strawberries, but it tastes like grapes. You know, it's this whole evocative thing that we use with our eyes and our senses, and we think that is a fish, and maybe you eat it. Interesting with say vegan food, plant food, or what they're doing now looks like steak, but there's no meat in it, you know? So how does that work? How does that work, you know? And I kind of like that. I like the playing with the senses. So you know what you're going to get, and all of a sudden you don't get that. So you think, oh, I don't know if I'm disappointed. I think I'm kind of disappointed. And then boom, then you do get it. And you go, oh, now it's in context. I get a bit of everything, you know? So just trying to expand the listener to be more involved with it, really, I guess.
So let's talk about touring. We know that you will begin a tour in the USA in October and November.
Yeah.
But we haven't any information about a European tour. Any chances to have you in Europe and of course in France?
Yeah. Jeff doesn't do the touring so much so well now.
Okay.
He wants to keep it kind of shorter because he finds it a bit difficult, you know. And physically, it's a bit tiring, of course, but mentally, I think since his heart attack, it takes its toll on him and he's quite a private person, you know. He's quite shy. He does his streams, but it's perfect for him because nobody's in the room, nobody's in his house, and he can turn the button off whenever he wants. So it's perfect, but it's good for him psychologically. But on the road, it can get a bit tough. And so he wanted to keep it to short stabs or festivals. Well, we have 3 dates in Italy leading to Keep It True, where we'll do the 1984 Hammersmith show. It's all going to go off. We're going to destroy everything. Just have some fun. And then we have, we were going to go to South America, but we may delay that slightly. But then we have Norway, Finland, and Sweden, where we're going to play the anniversary show like we did at Bloodstock and Alcatraz. So that's the 40th anniversary of black metal. And I had these special pics made. So and then we do America, but only partially. So we do like kind of the East Coast, that's part 1. And in 2023, we'll go and do part 2. So I've kept a gap in the middle that gets us into Europe. So it'll probably in the winter months.
Okay.
Which would be good because people will save on their heating. You can come to the show and we'll warm you up and you can save on your fuel bill just for one night. But hey, come on. But yeah, we'll do that. So I'm looking between December. Obviously, we'll have to keep Christmas free for people, but into January, February to get the European dates before we go back to America. So
fantastic.
That's the plan.
So thank you very much for all this information about the new album. It's a really good album. We love a lot. So thank you very much. We hope you the best, of course. It will be released the 23 September in a few days. So hope to see you very soon also here in France. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for this. It was a great pleasure. And thank you. And I'm glad you liked the album. And for you guys, keep listening to metal, keep listening to these guys and just support your music. France has the best hardcore bands, they came out into the world, apart from every other kind of cultural music. But,
exactly.
So keep supporting. And don't forget tomorrow, buy Metallica magazine. They've got reviews in. We did a feature in there and support Metallica too. So have a really good night. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Ha ha ha!